to be honest. If you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, or just want to chat about Dynasty and fantasy football in general, drop them whatever comment box, whatever streaming platforms we actually go to these days, and actually provide you next to our heads, under our heads, whatever. We do go in order that they turn up in our little chat queue. No real way to advance it. Not because we don't like you, just because it's how we started doing it. So we just kind of keep going. We're very just, why change stuff that doesn't work? That's kind of our philosophy, you know? Hey, Zach, how you doing?
Hey, there you are. I'm good.
I know,
I'm good.
right?
We got people in the chat. We got a Dynasty Grind. We're
it's about as good as it gets.
Yeah. I got my new SFB shirts.
I know you're looking swanky. I found a Jurassic Park shirt at Goodwill, and I was like, I'm having that. Are they selling SFB shirts like the regular way yet?
I think not.
I keep meaning to look,
but soon. But I don't actually have any inside information, but not yet.
I think I'm actually meant to record a podcast. I forgot where I'm at in that series, and I keep finding other interesting things. Like I was making a new way of making a value table to show like players' value over time. George Kittle is perhaps the most underrated tight end ever, as far as I can tell. But that's been what I'm up to fantasy wise, trying to make some trades. I've been trying to get Kyler and Herbert more, but I'm not finding much actionable value sway in my leagues.
To me right now, the pivot off that is Dak. And I know we just did a Rate My League show, but like I think people either don't realize or don't want to admit that Dak Prescott has been really good consistently now for 3 or 4 years when he's not banged up.
He had that swing a few years ago. I actually have him on the rosters. I'd be interested in adding quarterback. And that's because it happened to him before. I remember having takes and going out and trading for him, and I won some leagues with him on my roster last year. Basically because I bought him in that window. So that's frustrating. But you're right. Yeah, Dak's actually probably easier. Yeah.
We're still looking at that 4th round capital. We're holding
oh yeah, I got abandon that any second. Alan Davis, Jalen Hurts is about to get drafted as well. Alan Davis, I have to hold T. Higgins for now. I wish Cincinnati would just trade him. I don't. I like him. It rarely works out. Stefan Diggs is the rarity. It's normally even or slightly worse was what I found in my research, but it doesn't. Wide receivers in their prime of their career don't often get traded, to be fair, or haven't often been traded. But I get what you're thinking. I guess what I'd ask, Alan, is why you're desperate to get out from under T. Higgins is the same reason that you can't trade him right now. You have the same fears. You don't like T. Higgins. And I would just say maybe you should trade him. Like, that's why trades don't happen. People who are actually worried about it don't trade because the value's too low. And then they want to when the value comes up, you won't want to trade. Because you'll be like, I held and now he's good again. If you see what I mean, you're going against the flow of how trades work there. You want someone else to pay something you don't think he's worth, and later you won't want what he's worth. That's the thought I've got for you.
It's kind of a combination of that anchoring bias and then like a little bit of sunk costs because you've already paid up to get T. Higgins and now his value's low. But then It's an interesting
Alan, you're the reason none of my trade offers get accepted, and I wish you would start. No, you're good. But yeah, I find myself doing that a lot. And when you think about it, if you won't sell him now because his value is low, then you won't want to sell him when his value's high. So what's the point in having?
I do think though there's this really interesting thing going on with T. Higgins, not necessarily in fantasy football, but outside of fantasy football. And I'm in Maine, so I get Boston sports radio on my drive to and from work. And they were talking about, because the Patriots wide receiving core is so bad, they were talking about potentially what would happen if they traded for T. Higgins, and immediately one of the hosts said, well, T. Higgins is a wide receiver 1. I'm like, I don't know that we've ever seen that. I don't know that he's ever had to be a wide receiver 1. And so if that's the collective consciousness that like immediately T. Higgins becomes a wide receiver 1 wherever he gets traded to, if he gets traded, then Allen absolutely make that move. Because if you can get people to buy into T. Higgins is now something more than T. Higgins, which T. Higgins is pretty good. But if people are buying into now he's a wide receiver 1 because he's on a team with bad wide receivers, that's the I don't know, that like that's not a line of thinking that I'm going to buy into. So
what are some trades you consider? I consider trades into Addison plus. That's where my mind went.
Yep.
Or trades into middle of this first round plus, but it's probably even. So I get why Allen doesn't like to do that. But why not re-rolled or maybe getting Bowers or maybe getting Worthy, Brian Thomas? That's it's boats for maybe a boats, but yeah, that's probably where you're at. And if you have the fears, you shouldn't that's just what you think of the player, if you know what I mean. I think he's solid. Like I'm not going to trade him now or later unless he gets overvalued. And like Zach said, as a wide receiver 1.
Right.
Fantasy shirts. They are why I play. I'll be honest. At this point, they are my main motivation. That's how I get a new wardrobe, except for occasionally finding a movie reference at Goodwill. I love both Andrews and Kincaid in a non-tied end premium. You have Andrews and a trade asset. That's what you got.
Yeah.
I drafted him the 2.04 in his rookie year. So many windows, Alan.
But that, so now you don't even have the sunk cost because 204 is a nothing. Like that's not like So you T. Higgins does not owe you anything, Alan. But again, if you can get that window, that's great. But also, I think he's a good player, and if he's your wide receiver 3, that's a stud to have there.
Honestly, I wouldn't, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I would do those trades. I'm saying I'm roster T. Higgins. It's like Pittman right now. You just got the greatest wide receiver 3 ever. Pretty happy with it. Tim Shady, Superflex 12-team PPR contender. Send Saquon, A-Chain, Curtis Samuel. So Saquon and A-Chain, got it. For McCaffrey, Najee, and Tank Bigsby. Saquon to McCaffrey, A-Chain to Najee. Even
probably
Tank
Bigsby, but yeah. It's the McCaffrey side. I think you did well, Tim.
It's McCaffrey, yeah.
Or are doing well, Tim. If this is a send, I would rather have McCaffrey, Najee, and Bigsby than I would Saquon, A-Chan. Even though like A-Chan's got the dream value, I'd rather have the side that you're getting back with McCaffrey and Najee.
Yeah,
I think McCaffrey's still such a difference maker in PPR. Like he's a
definition of what we hope to get at running back. Like Saquon showed a little bit of it, and I think he'll do it again. And he's been good elsewise, but McCaffrey's it, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah. Superflex 12-team people, and he's 27. He's 27 last year. I think we've got a couple more years as well. Like people are going to start to panic, but he's not going nowhere. Superflex 12-team PPR contender. Send Saquon 8. Oh, I just literally read that. You'd think I would know. I'm a contender. 12-team 1QB PPR start 10, no premiums. I have Andrews and Kincaid in a 1QB league. You selling either of these for a mid-second and a mid-second for Pittman? Yeah, I'd sell Kincaid for Pittman. I'd throw in a second. That'd be fine by me.
Yeah.
Not Andrews, but yeah. Good Lord, Zach. It's beautiful. Quack, quack.
When the roosters are crowing and the cows are spinning circles in the fields, you buy SFB 14 shirts.
That's what I do, yeah. Whereas Nico, for you, after he did not move because they paid him. Settle. Like every
his tax bracket. No. He went up a tax bracket.
Yeah, he's doing well. I'm pretty happy for Nico Collins. But my Dynasty ranks didn't move like a little bit. I'm very on him, and his time connected with Stroud was big hold up for some. Then there was a window. I think my camera just died. That just means you should have been traded for even more Nico, to be honest, because that's a silly reason to hold up what you think of a player, in my opinion. Huh.
Pete's gone. But yeah, I agree there with Peter. The extension doesn't really change to me the way Nico Collins is valued. He has been very good this past year and had been like on the cusp of being good the year before. And so if you buy into Nico Collins as a good receiver, receivers are in charge of their own targets by their talent, and so that's kind of the it's nice that he got paid, it's nice that he's tied to Stroud, but that's kind of like the cherry on top of the cake, not the actual cake. All right, Toronto Dave, 12 team Superflex PPR, Kyron Williams or Rashee Rice. Man, this one is tricky, but I think I'm going to take the immediate value, the immediate points of Kyron Williams. Hope that his foot is right. Hope that he produces this year again in an offense where, he did a ton last year. They did add Blake Corum, so you've got a little bit of that nebulousness, a little bit of competition in the backfield. I still think I want 1 year of Kyron Williams right now over the question marks with Rashee Rice, but it is close. Like, I like Rashee Rice. I just think that I can get him for less than Kyron. So if I have to give up Kyron to go get him, or if I'm making a push and I have a team that's really competitive right now, I want Kyron Williams. If my team is now, if I'm middle of the pack, I can see going and paying a little less for acquiring Rashee Rice and having that longevity of the wide receiver position. So it's not like a full on Kyron Williams is the end all be all pick. I think it's a little bit situational, but I want the points in that 12 team Superflex PPR league, Dave. Puff pass kick. Good evening, gentlemen. Well, Peter decided he had to go because he didn't fit that, so he's out. He bailed on us, but good to see you, Puff pass kick. Scribbles. Bowers fell to a 112 in one of my leagues. That is nuts, because for me in a super flex league, I am starting to look at Brock Bowers at 105. And I understand that some people have Xavier Worthy, Rome Odunze up there. I guess Drake May and JJ McCarthy kind of sneak up into that area sometimes. But to me, if you're talking about potential elite difference makers, it's Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, it's Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, and then it's Brock Bowers, because I always look at making a positional difference, and those are the players in this 24 class to me that are really obvious difference makers. Now, there could be other players who do end up making differences at their positions. I'm not saying that I've got it on lock, but these are easily identifiable talent-wise to me coming into the league. So that is wild, Scribbles, that Bowers fell to 112. Bob, wow, that was a terminal failure of a screen. Peter's computer. We did a Rate My League podcast, like an individual league podcast before this, and I think his computer was just done with Peter. It was too much Peter to take, and the computer, all of the spreadsheets, everything just shut down. Scribbles again. Gibbs or CMC and Jacoby Myers. I still think it's got to be CMC. As great as Jahmyr Gibbs was this past season, and I understand it's dynasty and everybody is trying to get out and have that sexy roster that continues to churn and continues to play, it's really hard for me to give up Christian McCaffrey and the points, that differential that he gives you. There are not other running backs right now who are even in the same echelon as Christian McCaffrey. In a PPR format last year, McCaffrey outscored the running back 2 by over 3 points per game. And then the drop off to the running back 3 from Christian McCaffrey to the running back 3 was nearly 8 points a game. So like we've got this really big gap between Christian McCaffrey and all of these other mere mortal running backs. And as great as Jahmyr Gibbs was last year, and kind of you saw him be drafted to Detroit, that DeAndre Swift role that everybody had hoped that DeAndre Swift would fulfill, the fact that Gibbs came in and did that is fantastic. You can't be disappointed about that. But still, I don't think he's seeing the volume of carries, especially David Montgomery still there, to get you to CMC. And if you're getting Jacoby Myers on top with CMC, like that's just gravy. I still think CMC is the running back 1, even in Dynasty, or I mean maybe not the running back 1 because you've got Bijan and you've got Breece Hall, but like he's in the conversation. He's in that top tier, but he's not in the top tier because he's young. He's in the top tier because he outscores everybody. So Toronto Dave, appreciate it very much. Dave, I appreciate you. Peter and I appreciate everybody who shows up in the chat, who asks questions. You guys are what makes this thing go round. Oh, look, there's the other part of what makes this thing go round. But like we really, this show would not be what it is without the chat. The entire show is we get to come hang out with you, talk to some really sharp people who have some Dynasty questions. We get to kind of bat that around, figure out how we would approach it and why, which I think is important. But that also is predicated on the fact that the chat is popping and the chat has really sharp people asking really good questions. Hey, Pete.
I think the cords I use to connect the cords so I can actually have my PC where I want it died. My best guess. I restarted my computer and everything. I have no idea. My computer now sits at a weird place. I don't like it. I'm not a fan.
Where did we get to? We're down to Puff Pass Kick making fun of your computer.
Oh yeah, my computer's not a problem. Apparently, there's a little cord. Like I tried everything. Eventually, I just bypassed that cord by moving the piece, and now I'm working again. So, like that's annoying.
That's really what happened. Peter shut the camera off, rolled one for his computer, put it right in the right. Still got a floppy drive, and we're good.
I actually that's an option still, and I feel a little bit like VCRs. Like we should take the opportunity to get them before they run out. But then I was like, I could not find a floppy disk to use with it. So what's the point? Scribble.
I still have Oregon. I still have Oregon Trail and Loom upstairs. If you need a floppy disk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Maybe I do at this point. It looks like I might have to regress in technology. So yeah, maybe. I'm pulling things out when I got to stop playing with it until we're done. I came out wrong. Purdy or Goff?
Man, that's close. This is one of those things where like I don't want to make that decision.
I said Purdy and then felt weird about it straight away. It's more you want to add something to one or the other and then go up and get Dak.
I think it's man, it is. They're very similar. I guess it's whichever one you can get cheaper. Because I think they're very similar. They're neither of them are great quarterbacks, but they're both surrounded by really sharp coaches and really good offenses, and have produced as mid top tier quarterbacks.
At least Purdy knows where the sun rises. I'm just going to throw that at. I assume. Heart football, punny hat guy, heart football. I agree, Dave. Don't make me say football that many times in a row. I don't have the T level for it. Appreciate you. And apparently, in my absence, you failed to rack up more comments. Like, what were you doing, Zach? Like, what do I not pay you for?
I don't know. I was answering questions at a alarming rate. So,
any interesting ones? Let's see. Bowers fell to the one. Wow, that's insane. That is insane. That's just a statement of fact. Yeah.
Bob
Gibbs
has a
or
question.
CMC and Jacoby Myers. It's CMC. Pretty easy.
Yeah.
A question, but you never get to it. Oh God, it's gonna take a minute. We'll just wait. We'll talk to Scribbles in the meantime. I love Sam Laporta, but he's currently valued. Is he a sell priced as he is next to Kelsey? Back between him and everyone else points wise, there are other options I think to compete with. Yeah, he's in a CJ Stroud spot where it's worth investigating. No pressure to. You're pretty happy to keep CJ Stroud, very happy to keep Sam Laporta. But what's available? What will you give me on top of Andrews, Kittle, Ingram, whatever? And especially where you're trying to balance points per game versus value. This is an opportunity to increase our value somewhere. Like, give me, what kind of pick are you going to give me? What kind of picks are you going to give me to convert Ingram or Kittle is one of my go-tos, or Andrews into Sam Laporta? There's send out some offers. What would you want to move off of him? You're looking at least a 25 first for me. Yeah. And that would tempt me away from one of those others. Into one of those others. Or am I frozen?
Yeah, you're kind of doing a get, but that's
Zach?
look.
Okay. I think at least first.
Laporta to me is, and Peter, you said it. It's that we wanted it so bad we jumped the shark, and we've been doing this with quarterbacks for years, where Baker Mayfield came in and immediately he got moved up into a top quarterback, and you've seen that multiple times, where it's not. We overshoot the good players and try to put them up into this great tier before they are producing as a great player. And that's the Laporta. Like, Laporta was fantastic last year. Laporta was the tight end one, but he did not separate himself from the other tight ends the way Travis Kelce has separated himself, the way Gronkowski before Kelce was separating himself, the way Jimmy Graham
has been more than anyone else other than Kelce.
Yeah. And so Laporta is at least a kick the tires on a sell, because Dynasty now is, when we have something good, we run it way out past the actual value of it, and then we walk it back when it fails to meet the expectations that were never attainable anyway. And so you're going to have a sell window now on Laporta, And then eventually we're going to walk it back past where he's a value and you'll have a buy. This is what we do with players who are really good early.
And what you do with that, especially in a league, because most of us are thinking about a league, or very few, or I am, I can't effectively trade in and out of players very, very often. I'm not Dynasty Outhouse, okay? And I really only play 5 leagues anymore. So what you do is you kick the tires for sure, but without a great offer, you keep Sam Laporta. Otherwise, you're in that place, you try and sell him in the sell window. Then you try and buy him back in the buy window, and you can't because people just don't want to rotate players back and forth constantly. They figure it out once you start sending offers too many times like that. So you're mostly just rostering Sam Laporta. It's the same with CJ Stroud. He looks like an insane value. And I've seen some great trades. So kick the tires and see if you can get a great trade. But if you can't, what's the point in selling him now for when it's going to be actually harder to buy him back? Everyone's going to, well, Allen was doing. We all do. Like, I don't want to sell him now. His value's too low, even though they share the concerns when he enters that sell window. And you actually end up paying back about what you got, unless you got a great trade. So yeah, that's kind of where the line is. And you got to feel out your league. If I'm in a league with Dynasty Outhouse, trades are usually flowing. Same with Matt Price. Without those guys, it tends to be a little bit of a slower market. So yeah, you kind of have to weight that into. That is modern Dynasty, I guess you could say. What would you break Josh Allen down to? I haven't done it with Josh Allen. I've done it with Lamar Jackson. Tier below, but still elite for me. If I'm trading one of those guys, and that's what I was going to say about the Sam Laporta thing, unless your team situation demands that you are pushing in a certain direction. And if I'm trading Josh Allen, it's because I'm building, which means I'm looking for the most liquidity that I can get, which depends on the league. It depends on the offers that people will be interested in. But with a quarterback like that, there's really no price. When they get in that elite price tier, they're Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, even Jamar Chase. And when they get in that pricing tier, there's no set value, I think, despite how much a trade calculator guy, creator like yourself, Bob, will hate that. I think there's just how much will someone let me bleed them? It's that simple, because there's nothing else. That's why it's at elite tier. And it's about what can I do to completely fill my roster back out if I'm getting rid of one of those guys. So with Jackson, I think I got 3 firsts plus something over multiple years. But like, I was just building. I just need liquidity.
I wonder, this may be a Bob, like, because I just did this in a league a couple of weeks ago, and he may know that, but I traded Josh Allen, and I traded him for Jordan Love and the 103. And so I got Jordan Love and Jaden Daniels in a league where I just won the championship. But I think that gives me, I did not have, so I won the championship, but I did not have 2 quarterbacks. I played it the way I play all outhouse leagues, where I have like the one hammer and then roll with tight ends. But now by doing this, I still have a reasonable facsimile of a hammer quarterback, although I'd love to be able to make a trade and get into Dak Prescott or Kyler Murray. Those right. Would really be the targets, not Jordan Love, although
I think
Love is fun. I'm worried about Herbert.
I know.
And
I think that's reasonable, but
yeah,
I'll take the window.
But he's been good, not great, with elite volume. Like he's not going to have more volume ever than he has had already, because you physically can't do that. Like he's been throwing over 600 times a year, like for the last 3 or 4 years, and he's been really good, but he hasn't been in the tier of, and I think the same thing kind of stands true for Stroud. Unless he's throwing for 40 or 50 touchdowns, like you can't, you're not going to touch the Lamar Jackson, the Hurts, the Mahomes. Right. Mahomes does that. And so there's this weird, like, these guys are good, but we want them to be so much better, that the value is higher than the production. And so I'd rather take one of these lower valued, again, the Kyler, the Dak, the players that have lower value, and I'd rather get into them and get more on top than I would get into Herbert. And it's not that I think Herbert is bad, because he is good, but not as good as the acquisition cost that you would have to pay for him. At least that's that's where I'm at right now with Herbert.
No, I get what you mean. It's just it's why I don't mind acquiring Najee Harris as well. I'll take the volume. Yeah, here's the thing though, like Herbert throws for more yards than Dak. So if you like Dak, isn't it about touchdowns?
I mean, it's about something, but again, attempts where he threw for, and obviously last year he was banged up, but 2021 he had 672 attempts. 2022 he had 699 attempts, and we're still not getting into that echelon. Like you're not gaining anything. I think it's.
Well, I'm not arguing he's Mahomes or Allen though.
But I think people are putting him up in the top of that next
Murray.
Yeah, but
I think he's in that next group.
Yeah, but he ends up at the top of that next group for a lot of people.
Okay.
And I'd rather take the bottom of that next group and get a plus than I would go get Herbert. It's nothing against Herbert. It's just the way the community values him versus what I can get for production cheaper and have very similar fantasy output.
That's fair. And I'm saying the same thing on Dak and Murray and as Herbert, though, when they're not valued in that next group, let alone at the top of it. That's why I'm chasing them. But yeah, I get your point. Yeah. Volume can't go up. So
yeah.
If you were to trade Travis Etienne for Stafford, how much on top of Stafford would you want in return? What's the format? I feel like a second and Stafford isn't but Stafford and a first isn't going to happen. And you can't trade Travis Etienne for Stafford. Like, that's the problem with a league. Like, if that's what the guy feels like who's rostering Stafford, then good luck with your 1 year. And I'll keep Etienne and go, proposition some of these other quarterbacks if that's what I need. Quarterback rosters. Like, yeah, I wouldn't do it for a second. And if that's where he is already, then what you would need on top, then that doesn't matter. You can't. I rarely badger people into accepting a trade. It's a 10-team Superflex league, particularly hard to trade for QBs and people hoarding, etc. I have Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Flacco trying for a third starter. In a league where it's difficult to trade for quarterbacks, I mean, sure, we can chase the Staffords and the Purdys, but their value's already high in that league, is what you're saying. I think chasing a third's suboptimal, maybe because they overvalue quarterbacks. Take Burrow, go chase some upside. Like Burrow's in that second tier, but he's towards the bottom of it for me. And so if I can trade up in that tier, like there's a reason they're higher in that tier for me. For Burrow, I do that. And if you can trade into Hurts by adding something, because quarterbacks are over, like that would be where my mentality goes. I think overpaying for a Stafford or a Purdy, because I think that's the opposite way to go with what you're saying in the league flow is.
I would want a first with Stafford to give up Etienne, but you're not going to get this year's first. So like it would have to be one out. It would either be a 25 or a 26. And like I don't mind doing that, but you also have to understand that limits a little bit your competitiveness. And I get what you're saying. It's hard to trade for quarterbacks. People are hoarding them. So figure out what position scores similarly to, because if you have a league and scoring settings, sometimes do funky things, you may be able to get into a situation where instead of going after Stafford, who is, a middle of the road, I'm being very kind to him, quarterback in terms of production, you might be able to get into a higher end, either running back or wide receiver who's going to give you Stafford's points without having the quarterback label if people are hoarding quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah. Look
I'm
at the tight end position.
Yeah, I'm always about kind of trying to flip value on its head, find what is not being valued for points and figure out a way to get those without paying up for the other premium position just because of the position, not because of the player.
Keep trade. I have a team that has Stroud, Richardson, Caleb, and Daniels. 0 wide receivers. I want to move 2 of them. Richardson.
I would keep Stroud, and I would probably keep Daniels, and I would trade Richardson and Caleb Williams. I think that they're overvalued. And I'm still not completely convinced that Jaden Daniels isn't the best quarterback fantasy wise in this class.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what's the offers, Bob, as you know, and I think what Zach's rooting for there is he expects to get better offers relative to what he thinks of them on Richardson and Daniels, Richardson and Caleb. And I can't disagree. Like Richardson and Caleb, those are the ranks that I'll be most dubious on. I'm not dubious on Caleb's rank, but after Richardson, he's the next one on that list that I'm most. I could see Daniels being the Stroud was over Young last year kind of a thing. That happens, and I think they're both really strong prospects. I think Caleb deserves to be over Daniels, but I don't think it's huge. And so I can see it. So of the ones that you mentioned, he's the other one I expect to get a better trade on, and I'm still pretty happy with what I keep in Daniels. But again, if someone's willing, if I got Zac in my league, I might get a better trade on Daniels. So
right, and it's always it's league dependent. Bob, just look in your notebook and figure out what. No,
go to Dynasty Trade Calculator, plug them in,
and honestly, like the overall community is higher on Stroud than it should be. To me, I would be looking at trading all of these players, although I may hang on to Daniels. But I think that Stroud is overvalued. I think that Richardson is potentially overvalued, and I think that Caleb Williams is potentially overvalued, and that there are quarterbacks that I want to get into who aren't valued as highly. That again, it's the Dak, it's the Lamar Jackson.
That's what you should do. You should trade those 4 or 5 for Murray, Dak, and
Lamar. And
Lamar's good on that list.
Get pluses on those. Yeah.
Or just trade for Hurts. You'll be fine. OTA reports are out. Caleb threw an interception. Time to sell, right? Absolutely. No quarterback that ever threw an interception has ever been good. So, facts. Yeah, player I like was filmed doing something, so he good now. Season.
Has anyone heard any more about the Aaron Rodgers limping around? Just out of curiosity, I saw a quick clip. Don't know if it was a blister or if it's something more, but
someone should steal his shoes and find out. Josh M. Evening, guys. How close in skill set is Jaden Daniels to Caleb Williams? It's not a question I can answer. I can say profile-wise, the minimum profiling and Williams edges out Daniels, but I understand what Zach's saying. He's more of the rusher, and that has the Jackson and everything we were just talking about, volume versus scoring touchdowns. Rushers have another way of scoring points. It just gives them an edge, essentially. Higher ceiling. He was a really solid passer, really solid rusher in college relative to past prospects, so I can see it.
So obviously it's a different skill set, but a lot of what Jaden Daniels does scores fantasy points. And I think he was a better, again, we look at these Konami code quarterbacks, the quarterbacks that can run, and we've been scared off a little bit because you've had Fields who ostensibly failed, at least in the NFL. I don't know that he failed for fantasy, where you got 2 years of a QB1.
There are definite windows,
Yeah.
That's fair.
And you've had Anthony Richardson, who's not a great thrower, although we haven't seen him fail yet, but he's not a great thrower. You saw Trey Lance come out, also not a great thrower, and so we've been we've had a run of dubious quarterbacks with a real ability to run. I think Jaden Daniels is the best one of this archetype of quarterback, the running quarterback. I think he's the best one to come out since Hurts. I think it was Lamar Jackson, it was Hurts, who are really like noticeably good throwers. Jaden Daniels is coming off a year last year where he threw 327 times for almost 4,000 yards, 3,812 yards, 40 touchdowns, and then added 1,100 yards with his legs. That's the difference between him and Caleb Williams. Is Caleb Williams will run, like he will add yards, but he is not a runner.
There's a really interesting. Sorry, Karen.
No, it's fine. But it's just like Jaden Daniels has that rushing ability. I also think he's got really good touch on checkdowns and screens. I think he does a good job varying his velocity of throws, but he does have that fastball he can reach back to when he needs it. I do think that he is also accurate to the point where he benefits yards after catch, which isn't always the case. Like you see quarterbacks and people like, oh, he's really accurate, but he's not putting the ball on receivers where they can make the catch in stride in the flow of their route and add yards. Jaden Daniels does that. I think he's really good with a clean pocket. I am worried he doesn't take care of himself at the end of runs. He doesn't do a good job utilizing the sideline, doesn't do a good job utilizing a slide. And so he ends up with like getting hit like NFL Blitz, like that video game on Super Nintendo. He gets hit like that, but it's real life, which is not great. I think sometimes he holds the ball too long under pressure, gets caught between whether he's trying to pass or run. His first instinct when pressured is always to run. And I also think he struggles a bit when he's forced left. Caleb Williams, on the other hand, gets the ball out quickly, but he doesn't have to hurry, which I love, where like he can just sit back there and be nonplussed, just be calm under pressure and get the ball out. He makes so many throws that are only catchable for his receiver. So he's throwing the ball away from traffic. He can account for interior pressure with his own mobility, but I think he gets caught doing that too often. So he tends to run before he needs to. So he feels pressure and he's like, okay, I'm going to move the pocket. And I think that tends to hurt his receivers. So that they're both really good. They're both top end quarterback prospects. They're a little bit different.
I'm trying to. There's a thing going on in Dynasty. It's interesting. I'm trying to say it without it being braggadocious because it's not. Like, I think it's a trend. I think it's a natural human reaction almost. Like, for a while there, what a lot of people said was no one wants to take L's. No one admits they're wrong. No one keeps their receipts. And I thought that was true. But what we don't like to do is give other people credit for being right more than that, or at least now. Like, you were just talking about Daniels and Trey Lance and that. And there's something similar going on with Worthy in that people that don't like Worthy don't like it because they like John Ross. I get the strong impression, or that type of receiver. And so you end up saying, look, I didn't fall for the mistakes you're saying he's like. And it's happening with Brian Thomas Jr. as well. People get saying he's basically Terrence Marshall. And I immediately want to know, did you disagree with me on Terrace Marshall at the time? Because I got it right.
Right.
Whether I was right or wrong, because it could just be confirmation bias, to be fair. But like I got lucky or I was right. And he does not look like the same concern to me. And that's also why I like him at the end of the first and not at the start of the first, like it's adjusted for. And the same thing with Worthy. He's a small, fast guy. They never succeed. It's like, that's why I used to point out that the 40 time was bad, because there was an inverse relationship to the 40 time because they were being overdrafted on the 40 time. Like, I have not been caught by those mistakes because I was lucky enough to notice it. Avoided several mistakes you're mentioning that maybe you didn't fall for. And so now you don't like Worthy, even though like he's not the same concern, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And it's almost like the reaction to getting something else wrong has been to think that the thing that you liked was bad. And it's like, no, a fast receiver can be good. They just have to be good in college relative to how other good receivers have been good. Receiving yards per team pass, attempt, yards per route run if you absolutely must. And it's the same with Brian Thomas Jr. The fact that he has one good year of production is bad, but then you look into the context and it's like, oh, that's not like Marshall, really. And he had a much more solid year instead of just 3 good games in a shortened year. So that's not the same problem. But because they got Marshall, they don't want to make that same mistake. So instead of us thinking, well, the people that got it right probably are adjusting for this well, instead they think, no, now Brian Thomas is just a bad bet. If you know what I mean? You see where I'm going? It's the same thing with they like Trey Lance. Lots of people like Trey Lance. Lots of other people said, look, there's strong concerns on his ability to pass. And then he struggled to pass. And they're like, so clearly the thing I was chasing was wrong because I can't say that you were right.
That's it.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, that's weird. Like, and I'm only just noticing it because it's like it's what I want to be the exact opposite of I want to know what I got right and I want to know what someone else got right when I got it wrong so I can figure out what to do.
See,
but like it's a non-ego thing or trying to remove your own ego.
What you're noticing though, and the way the collective reacts to things, this is exactly how I play Dynasty. Like this is why I keep track.
That's why I'm bringing it up. It seems to fit, and like there's 3 players in this draft. Daniels, according to you, and I listened to your quarterback evaluation and others, and Travis. I'm like, okay, so he's not Trey Lance then. Like the same. That's what I did with Lamar. It's like, oh, so he's not bad at passing. No, he's good. Yeah. So I got Lamar. Same with Hurts. Same with, and the people who got all up in their cups about Lance and Fields. Now, instead of going, okay, so these guys are getting it right, so what are they doing different? Instead of saying, no, just that whole thing doesn't work ever. And it's like, no, some work if you know what you're looking for. And it's okay, you didn't know what you're looking for if you're willing to admit it, because then you can just start looking for the thing that someone else figured out. Like, you know what I mean? And there's like 3 players in this draft which are all that. If they work out, it's going to be like this windfall of just being willing to notice when someone else is doing something better, which has happened to me constantly. So I've just stolen what other people are doing, and now I do it. You know, like that's a better response, if you know what I mean. And if they don't work out, like no one's going to learn that lesson, I guess. I guess the whole point is no one's going to learn that lesson either way. That's kind of frustrating. Sorry to take you on the side, Josh, but that's interesting the way you would link Daniels to Trey Lance's failure, and both Thomas and Worthy have both been linked back to players that I didn't like. I'm like, that's weird that you're saying that. I feel like you were someone I was arguing with over Marshall at the time. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Anyway, puff pass kick. It's potential value. Is all. It's a 10-team super flex. It's particularly hard. We just did that.
Yeah. Yep.
Richard Davis, I traded away JJ and McBride for AJ Brown, tank down 25 first and 26 first. You did pretty good, actually. It sucks to trade JJ, but I think you got a good trade on it. It sucks to trade McBride, to be honest, but that's fine. But you got 1-2 first on top of AJ Brown, who's not a first away from JJ. Well, maybe. But you got 2, and then you got Dell on top, which is fine for McBride. Yeah, I think you did pretty good. You diversified here a little bit and got a bit more liquid. I like it. Other tight ends are Pitts, Goddard, and Andrews. My wide receivers are Lamb. Well, you had some tight ends to burn, let's face it. Are Lamb, Chase, Rice, Franklin, Pearsall. Now, I will say what you have doesn't necessarily affect the trade. Like, if it was bad, it wouldn't matter. You had all these things, but that's good to know. Pearsall, no. I saw a worrying tweet from none other than Sigmund Bloom the other day, prophesizing that Pearsall was going to take a couple of years to break out because of a trade that recently happened. And I'm like, if you're already on the blackboard with the red lines, then he's definitely someone you shouldn't draft in a rookie draft. That's like pick him up second season at best. And actually don't. Now I have 225 first and 426 first. Well, look at you go. And a pretty good team anyway.
Yeah.
Nice. QBs and running backs are loaded as well. Keep
just,
going. They're not stopping
flexing.
you.
I love it.
So sometimes it's okay to just win. With that in mind, what should I look to trade away Justin Jefferson for in best ball? Start 10, Superflex League. I mean, you just did a pretty good trade for him. Like, I like this. AJ Brown's an interesting target when trading away Justin Jefferson. I like that. Jalen Waddle might be next down on the list in terms of add him. So you're not moving too far down, though people think you're moving a lot further than maybe you are, and then get the heap of value on the back end. That's kind of what I would think. And again, I trade those elite tiers when I'm looking to build. Like, otherwise I have Justin Jefferson to win. Like, that's why I have him. So yeah. Outside of segueing over to Jamar Chase, because there's no value lost, but you get a plus. Yeah, sure. Cool.
Well, and the other thing that you could do to me is, and then we just talked about McCaffrey being in that top tier of quarterbacks because of the way he scores. Like, tiering, going from Justin Jefferson can I say this, down to McCaffrey and getting something on top like that to me is one of the moves that I would make with Jefferson. Even though I understand I'm giving up years, I'm gaining points and I get another asset because McCaffrey is lower down than Jefferson. People are more excited about rostering Jefferson than McCaffrey. So I think you gain points even though you lose years, and then you gain another asset. That might be a way that I would
switching
look
positions is also an interesting way of approaching that.
But stay,
and you're also actually improving. Yeah, I like that a lot, especially for a winning team. Yeah, that's a smart idea. Sheesh, forget about today, guys. Okay,
us too.
No. Yeah, same thing. Currently filling a startup. Have like 9 guys paid. Cool. I don't have questions. My teams are too awesome. That I believe that. And the startup
because he's got all Romo Dunze and
Pop, just all Romo
Pop Douglas everywhere,
and Anthony Richardson. I assume. I want my guy. For example, Kyler Murray has an ADP of 24 on Sleeper. I'm taking him 10th overall. I don't care. I don't want to risk him going. No, that's fine. I mean, it's relative to draft. The further down you get, the less you should care about ADP in general. But if it's within a round, within a round and a half, you can't. It's happened to me. I've fallen into the trap. I was playing tight end in a specific way to get Goddard in the Biscuit Bowl League. It's like the SFB, but the money goes to help animals instead of children. So I'm all in. And I was going to get Goddard. And he went just half a round before I was going to take him 2 rounds before he went. And like, that's it. That's my entire build. And when you have someone or something that you're intentionally doing like that, you can't fret over a round or 2 rounds. And you just draft them. That's fine. It's relative to where you're drafting them. Like, the higher up, the smaller tolerance I have for it. But by the time you get to the 3rd, 4th round, you can reach 5 rounds. I'm not going to blink at that. Because it's about your ranks versus ADP, not just ADP.
Right.
Yeah, Zach, I just saw it. He looks cooked. Holy dust.
That's Aaron Rodgers. It's Tyrod Taylor time. Here we go. Ooh.
Finally, again. Makes me not want to draft Brees in round 2 of a start. Like, don't worry. Brees
Brees was pretty good last year with worse quarterbacks than what they're going to have this year.
can I take Tank down round 4 in a startup, even though his ADP is like 64? I'd say you're borderline there, but it depends who's on the board. If there's players between those two that I still have ranked higher than Tank Dell, I'm taking those other players. But if there isn't for you, yeah, that's where you can take them. Because it's got to go back round twice before it gets back to you, and that's 12 other players who might not have 2 other players between now and Tank Dell. So.
The other interesting thing with a startup is, at least most of the startups that I've done, is you can trade. So make a move where like maybe you can go, move down in from your pick at 48, or your 4th round pick. Maybe you can move down into the middle of the 5th, but you can move up, with one of your other picks, and then you end up getting the player you want on your move back, and also getting a better player than you would have gotten. Like you can kind of finagle moving around in startup.
You're trying to mitigate your opportunity cost. So you move back 5 spots or whatever for like a pick set 3 or 4 rounds later, and then overdraft a guy. It's kind of, you're giving yourself a little window for it to have not been such a reach. Yeah. Also, same league where I traded JJ, I traded Mahomes for Richardson. Unlikely. The 101. Well, that's pretty solid then. First, and got it. Other QBs are Kyler and Purdy. I would look for windows to trade Richardson, but outside of that, strong plan. Thoughts on Brian Robinson this season? Volume guy. Like, I think he should actually look into, have the role there. Not a huge passer, not a huge opportunity, and I don't think he's like incredibly good on opportunities, but he's solid on opportunities, and so he's just going to get you those. That's why QB2 is running back 2 is actually one of the easiest positions to replace, because you always have a Brian Robinson somewhere.
It will be interesting to see what happens if Jaden Daniels is the starter, though, because if he runs the way that I think he's going to, he's going to be a top option as a runner. And so all of a sudden, maybe that takes a little bit away from him. It's kind of it was harder to be a great running back with any of the Russian quarterbacks. The lanes are easier. The lanes are open more, but if a quarterback is taking, 100 carries, that's all of a sudden it's a little bit different.
Blast from the past. We used to have that argument over Robert Griffin, or I used to remember Matthew Berry back when I listened to content, arguing about whether a running back, because I can't remember his name, could be a good running back with Robert Griffin III, because he's done it before. Who was that running back? It wasn't Ingram, but it's a name like Ingram. I don't know. And it rarely happened. It's still kind of debatable whether you can be a top 10 running back, say, and have a Lamar Jackson. But like,
I think you can be, but you have to be super efficient. I don't know that Brian Robinson is like
I think most are gonna. And also, why would a team stock up and running? Why do you get Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey when you've got Lamar Jackson? And so normally it's balanced that way. But top 24 more than in his range. Like if he has a role, and I think he should. Even with Daniels, I think you're going to be getting top 20 running back 2 out of him. That'll be fine. Yeah. But it's not something exciting.
Was it the guy? There was the guy who was in the same backfield as Roy Halou, wasn't it?
Yeah. I remember Halou too. Oh God. Fun.
I'll come up with it.
I think it was lower drafted too, so I love them.
Somebody's going to have told us already, but
it'll come to me. 10 team PPR, 1 QB start 10 QBs are Kyler and Stroud. Who is a good tier down? I could possibly look in 2 for Stroud in a 1 QB. Go get Dak. At least me and Zach both agree on Dak, so we don't have to have the Herbert conversation again. But yeah,
honestly, the other thing that I might try to do. So this is a 1 QB, so you don't need both of them. Right. So like you can kind of move into a different position. I'd have to look and see what
I would try and use Stroud to get into the top 3 picks in a 1 QB league. Like, can I bump me into that elite, like Harrison, Neighbors, Bowers? Yeah. Can I bump myself into the top 3? Like, I would use Stroud for something like that. Don't need a quarterback back in 1 QB. Thoughts on Pearsall's outlook? I'm rooting for the guy. Kind of what I say. I wasn't particularly high on him. I thought he looked pretty decent, pretty solid. I think he's slightly overdrafted, but he's got the draft capital. NFL knows more than I do, I assume. I don't have a lot of expectations, to be honest.
Alfred Morris.
Thank you. Yes.
It took me a minute.
That was going to bug me.
Got there.
That was a reference. What's value get between DJ Moore and Brian Thomas? A lot. Boats and maybe a boats. Brian Thomas is a late first, early second in some leagues, which is why it's insane at this point. DJ Moore's worth multiple first-round picks, so it's decent gap, at least a first. Yeah. Thanks, guys. No problem, Scribbles. Just thoughts too. Don't that's just what I think. I mean, literally, it's just an opinion. Hopefully, it's something to bounce an idea off. But if you disagree at all, my advice is always just disagree and come back and tell me why I was wrong when it's proves that I was wrong. Holy cow, who is going to be the biggest fantasy bump in Buffalo with all those
vacated targets?
No one. I actually think Josh Allen's going to have a slightly worse year with that Diggs, but he'll be fine. He's Josh Allen, for goodness sake. Kincaid should have a better year in general, but that's got nothing to do with Diggs targets. But yeah, he's not going to bump into the Stroud type stratus there of production last year either. We're hoping for Pat Furman's type production numbers. Yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere. I think the passes are going to be more incomplete, or they're going to be less common. Going to be more rush attempts from Allen, that kind of thing. I think it'll balance out that way. Again, am I freezing or are you freezing? I'm freezing, aren't I?
No, it's you. It's not me. You look good, though.
Trey Lance Armstrong. Okay. It's always... did you have any thoughts on this then? Because I kind of just went past it after saying my thing.
No, I mean, I think that's you probably like it. Kincaid probably gets a bigger, like he's going to have over 100 targets this year, but he was going to anyway. So whatever. It will be interesting to see what they do with James Cook, who I think
was a strong sell Khalil Shakir window.
Yeah, but so James Cook was very quietly a top 12 running back last year. And he can make plays in the receiving game, is also fairly efficient as a runner. I think he is a potential increase in workload and success. And so that'll be an interesting one too. And I think he got a little undervalued because he doesn't look like a traditional running back.
I tell you what, I think that was a lot of people saying that he was going to be Jahmyr Gibbs and then having to back off that when it was actually closer to what us who were like, yeah, he's pretty decent, but let's not go insane. Yeah. So he fell in the middle. I was slightly wrong. They were slightly wrong. And so they don't want to recognize it. And I'm not going to hype a guy I was lower, or those of us who were low. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like it's a Joe Mixon effect. That's exactly what happened to Joe Mixon. Constantly in the top 12, never paid off on the train riders for Joe Mixon, but never quite disappointed enough for the haters to bring it up. And so he just quietly rides a top 12 running back, and no one like, let's just not talk about that. And that's what Cook did last year. Yeah, good point. That's a thing, Puff Pass Kick. Ben, what jersey would you get if you couldn't get one from your hometown team? Don't have a hometown team. I'm not much of a team rider either. I did see a Tennessee Titans shirt today, and I was like, I should have football attire, and then bought this instead. Because I don't like I don't know. Like I might buy a player's jersey because I'm a big fan of most of these players. Like I really enjoy watching them. I think they're really good at the thing. I think that's pretty awesome to be good at. But I don't get team feelings. So if there was a player, I mean, God, there are so many. Probably Arian Foster, though, so would be top of my list. So, yeah, if we're talking about current players, I mean, I've mentioned Kittle like 17 times today, so I guess I'll say him. But Adam Thielen, he's still current technically, isn't he? That'd be pretty awesome.
I don't I don't own any jerseys.
Actually, I've never seen, and that's weird because you're like a guy who watches football and stuff. I've never noticed that. It makes sense. I don't
own any jerseys, and I don't own any team like attire at all. I own a lot of fantasy football stuff, a lot of Scott Fishbowl stuff, but like that's just not my jam. Now I have favorite players. Like I would like Justin Jefferson. Like
see, that's where my mind went. Like I'd buy a player's thing,
like
but not
St. Brown. He's my guy. Lamar Jackson is one of my favorite. Just
awesome.
Like all around. Like I.
And I think that's the problem when you're a player guy, because I was like, I would have to buy like 200, and I don't have those cats. You know, I'm not.
Yeah. But I don't want to wear I don't want to wear like it.
Someone else's name, it's
weird. Like it's not like I have 3 of my own jerseys. Like I have those, but cool. It's not like that's not a thing that. And Ben, that's not to say that like if it's your jam, absolutely like do it. Like that's great. But it's not something that like that's a good question, but it's not a question I can answer because that's not my
fashion's
weird. I don't want a jersey
a lot.
Yeah.
But it's a fashion question more than anything else. That's probably why it's like I don't have a strong.
I'm not fashionable.
I just wear stuff. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, I have thought about it though, because occasionally I see jerseys or team attire, and I'm like, I do a lot of football stuff. Why am I never tempted by these things? And that's, like Zach says, it's probably just your jam, not my jam thing. My head tells me Brian Thomas Jr. is going to bust, but then my heart wants I'm all in on him. But that's the thing. You should ride that line. Like, there's a strong bust risk. That's why he's an end of the tier, end of the first round kind of player. Like, we're not expecting 75% hit rates with picks 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in the first round of a random rookie draft, let alone this year. But he's got an above average shot at that value to actually do something pretty decent for fantasy football. And hopefully, conversely, for the NFL too. Like, he looks like a pretty decent prospect at that value. Now, if we were talking about like Odunze being pushed into that top tier, I'd be like, nah, fam. Then maybe I'd be the one saying vibes of Terrence Marshall or whatnot. But that's not where he is. And that's not what Terrence Marshall was. People took him like in the top 3, 4, 5 picks. And that was one of the big concerns. But I think it's adjusted for based on where you get him, as long as you're considering trades with that in mind. Yeah. I like getting jerseys for the guys on my team. That's cool. I think that's awesome. You got a clip of Brian Thomas Jr. doing something, don't you? Oh, it's a running back. Chris Towers is the Riley Green. No. Okay. I can't hear you.
It's Trey Benson. Nobody can.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Nobody can tackle Trey Benson in non-contact drills. So, fire it up.
He's just too elusive. And Ben, this is awesome. Like, I think people look great at him, and I like seeing people support players just in general. So I'm a fan. so that's awesome.
This is the Mighty Ducks Scott Fishbowl, because Julie the Cat Gaffney in Mighty Ducks 2 is from Bangor, Maine. That's the hometown. So that's why I got this one. Yeah. So I feel you, Ben.
Yeah. I think that's pretty awesome, man. 12 team Superflex start 10, 1.5 10 in premium, give a mid to late 25 first, get Rice and McBride. I think that's pretty solid. Still have an extra in addition to my own. That's a competitive move, as in you expect to be scoring points more than stocking up value like a squirrel. But I think that's great. Great trade for a competitive team. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you probably you're paying value, like you're paying what Rice is worth, and right now I don't know that you necessarily have to, but like the overall deal I like.
It's like a McBride to account for the risks of Rice's legal trouble. So that's nice. That's nice of them. Peter, you should rock a Baltimore Colts jersey. I should. Zac doesn't wear a jersey. He calls them gelato bibs. That's actually a good one. Gelato bib. That's what I call all shirts from now on.
There's no need. Puff pass kick. There is no need for
no potential slippage.
It's very similar. If you watch me at Gelato Fiasco, it's like watching Kirby, the video game, where he just inhales everything. That's what happens. Would you like free samples? Right. No, I just want all of it. Just all of it.
Just back up, because this is going to be. Get your camera out. You're going to want to tell your kids about this one. Any players you guys think are very undervalued currently that would be buy lows? I mean, we mentioned a few of the quarterbacks. Yeah, why don't we do that? I haven't updated the list in a second. But I've got a thing that in my ranks that tries to look for them. It's not always great at it, but it value calculates me versus consensus. I like looking at DLF consensus instead of ADP, because ADP is a little slower. And I think my league mates are probably best represented by 12 random DLF rankers, because they all know what they're talking about. So at least I'm not assuming my league mates are idiots. It's just a genuine difference of opinion. My top values, like guys I like better right now, last time I updated them: Christian McCaffrey, Jalen Hurts, Austin Eckler, Justin Jefferson. But these aren't the type of values you're thinking about. Those are expensive ones, right? But I feel apparently pretty strongly. And so the ones that stand out to me are like Kittle. Again, he's like pick 85 overall. I have him 58. That's a significant difference between those rounds. Talking about round jumping like Genji was. Not Genji. Yeah, it was Genji. That one stands out to me, but I've mentioned him a lot. Tank Bigsby. I like the sophomore running backs right now just because I think, again, they still have the same potential if a role opens up as they did last year. And now they're suddenly less exciting. People don't want to roster them for seconds. So that's a pretty deep value. I have him 121st. He's 184th in consensus. Bowers, I'm 20 picks higher than. I'll take that. Saquon Barkley. These aren't really the values you're thinking of. Nash, tell you what, let me go by position, because I've got that better off my head. At running back, I'm sending a lot of offers, and I've actually gotten some trades done on Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, and Aaron Jones. Those are probably my top three running back that I'm finding success at.
For a 1 year rental, guys, Zamir White is fun.
Okay.
Peter doesn't think so, but it's true. He is fun.
He's not on my list, but it's not like I hadn't considered it. I don't know much about him. Until they do stuff, I don't know much about them unless they're rookie profiles I like particularly. Because I don't watch.
You know, Ray Davis.
I'll write him down from now on.
Ray Davis is running back 46 right now.
Oh,
he pre-draft he was my running back 3 in this class, and he landed in Buffalo, where James Cook has a very similar skill set.
Right. No, that's interesting. Removing rookies, a wide receiver. Honestly, don't know. That's why I'm a little distracted by it. AJ Brown, again, that's not deep, but he seems really misvalued right now to me. DK Metcalf. We talked a lot about who's the guy we were all over last week? It was slightly higher than Devontae Smith. I find him astonishingly undervalued. But again, we're talking like top 3 picks here, so that's probably not who you're thinking about. Jordan Addison. He's the guy I've actually executed trades on. So that's probably pretty easy value for me.
I think we're getting a lot better as a community at identifying. So there aren't as many values. Like J.K. Dobbins could be, but
Nick
who knows?
Chubb.
Like it's that like you look to a nebulous backfield and you look to talented backs in a nebulous backfield, and he is one.
That one draft that I've done that's more redraft kind of had me, because I was just literally making picks without looking at anything. And later, when you're talking values, I think most people are talking like cheap, free, basically.
Yeah.
And I was tempted enough to draft Josh Downs and Rashad Bateman, two decent rookie wide receiver seasons. I feel like I've missed on since. Like, it's rare I go back to a well I feel like I missed on. I'm like, I don't want to make the same mistake twice. But both of them were so great wide receivers as well. But that's how low they go. So those two stand out to me a little bit. We've done tight end all show, but like Kittle stands out to me so clearly. Pat Freiermuth, we've both mentioned, Zach. And I think deep, Greg Dulcich, because he missed the season he was hyped for, but like the hype was for reasons other than the missed season. And like, I still think that's all there. Like, I still think he had a decent rookie season. He was set up. Maybe bounces back after a missed year. Free. And Dallas got it. I've mentioned him before. I think I'm frozen again.
No,
I don't know if any of that got through. I'm just going to pretend it did.
You're good.
Hope that helps, Baker Kid, too. I think I'm getting through, but I don't get to know that I'm getting through. Thank you, StreamYard. Puff Pass Kick, excellent Kirby reference. Zach's references are always excellent. Josh M. If Davis was 22, he would have gone so much higher in the draft, I feel like. Kind of reminds me of Kareem Hunt, no fumbles in college. I'll tell you what, I actually think he wouldn't have gone higher in the NFL draft. He would go higher in dynasty drafts. We're the ones with this problem, not in the NFL. Yeah. I strongly suspect that.
I like both
second round running back values we both liked last year and this year, actually.
Yeah. I liked Kareem Hunt coming out.
Sorry, I'm slacking.
And I definitely like Davis coming out.
You did.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. He really does. His skill set really duplicates a lot of what Cook does, but I think he's a little bit bulkier, maybe, and maybe even a little bit better route runner than Cook. Not that he's going to come in and take over, but I think that if Cook won an all expenses paid cruise to Tahiti or whatever, I think that Ray Davis can come in and fill in admirably. And you're talking about a player in Cook who last year was the running back 12. So there's some, as the running back 46, as a guy who is a afterthought in the fourth round of rookie drafts, that to me is a value. Yeah.
I think there's a bunch of running backs right there next to him that I like picking up. And that's because some have received, like Marshawn Lloyd's gotten pushed above him, who I like a lot, but like he was in that group, and now him and Vidal and one other guy seem to be the ones people talk about, and so everyone goes and drafts them, and all the others are still sitting there. It's pretty
Jalen
nice.
Wright.
Jalen Wright's the other guy who gets the hype. That's me making that mistake, by the way. Remember when Kareem Hunt happened? I didn't get it. I wasn't in. Like, I didn't notice him. And then he happened, like, literally preseason. And it followed through right to the season, had that great rookie season. I knew enough not to believe that the landing spot mattered, but the noise on it was so strong, and I was wrong on Hunt, that I fell a little bit. I didn't have him over Taylor or anything, but I did fall a little bit for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's me making that mistake I was talking about. Instead of recognizing I just was wrong on Hunt or hadn't identified him, I instead went to the lie, which was the landing spot didn't matter. And I knew even at that time that wasn't true.
The Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing was so funny to me because I do the pre-combine. Like my analysis is mostly pre-combine. And so like I do my top 12 pre-combine, and I had Clyde Edwards-Helaire as running back 5. And everyone was like, no way, like this is ridiculous. You can't have him as running back 5. He shouldn't be up there. And then all of a sudden the draft happened, and I still had him as running back 5. And everyone was like, no, you can't have him as running back 5 because he's now the running back 1. And it's like,
that's what happens in these hubris moments. Like the community goes from lower than you, then higher than you, and calls you both wrong in the opposite direction both times. And you're like, dudes, chill. You know, you're not going to get it right. Clearly, you're yo-yoing.
There's some degree of elasticity where it goes up, but then it comes back, and it's like this is where we need to be. But Pete, I think we made it to the end. I think we made it to the end. We're here.
Yeah, I think my internet's too bad to keep going.
It is. Look over there.
See anymore. I guess they're done with this. I think I don't know what's going on.
Look over there, Pete. Look over there.